The morning sun rose over Pine Ridge, casting a golden glow across the quiet town. Birds chirped lazily in the trees, and the streets were still empty except for a few early risers walking their dogs or heading to work. It was an ordinary day, or so everyone thought. Inside his small observatory on the outskirts of town, Daniel Carter leaned closer to the screen in front of him. His eyes narrowed as he studied the data scrolling past. Something wasn't right. Daniel had always been fascinated by space. As a child, he would spend hours staring at the stars through a hand-me-down telescope his grandfather gave him. Now, at 32, he worked as an astronomer, spending most of his nights scanning the skies for anything unusual. This morning, however, he didn't need to wait until nightfall. The readings coming from Jupiter's orbit were impossible to ignore. A cluster of objects, moving too fast and too precisely to be natural, had appeared out of nowhere. At first, Daniel wondered if it was just space junk or maybe a glitch in the equipment. He ran diagnostics, checked the calibration, and even rebooted the system twice. But no matter what he did, the results stayed the same. There were ships, dozens of them, parked far enough away from Earth that they wouldn't immediately draw attention. Whoever they belonged to, they clearly didn't want to announce themselves yet. Across the country, Emma Lewis was having her own strange morning. She stood on the deck of the research vessel, Ocean Explorer, gazing out at the endless expanse of blue water stretching before her. The air smelled salty, and the breeze tugged gently at her hair. Normally, this view brought her peace, but today she felt uneasy. For the past week, the ocean currents around California had been behaving oddly. They twisted and turned in ways that defied logic, forming patterns that shouldn't exist. Emma knelt down and dipped a sample container into the water. When she pulled it back up, her brow furrowed. Tiny glowing organisms floated inside, shimmering, faintly like fireflies trapped in glass. These weren't supposed to be here. She'd never seen anything like them during her years studying marine biology. Carefully, she carried the sample to her lab below deck and placed it under a microscope. Up close, the creatures looked almost otherworldly, pulsing with soft light as though alive with energy. Back in Pine Ridge, Daniel finally decided to report what he'd found. He sent an email to NASA, attaching all the data he'd collected along with a detailed explanation of his observations. Then he sat back and waited, unsure whether anyone would take him seriously. To his surprise, a response came within hours. Officials wanted to see everything he had, and they asked him to stay available for further questions. Meanwhile, news outlets picked up rumors of unidentified objects near Jupiter, sparking panic and speculation among the public. Emma also shared her findings, sending samples and photos to colleagues at various universities and research institutions. Most dismissed her claims as unlikely or outright impossible, suggesting contamination or faulty equipment. But one scientist, Dr. Laura Simmons, seemed intrigued. She reached out to Emma, asking for more details about the glowing organisms and the unusual current patterns. Together, they began piecing together a puzzle neither of them fully understood. As days passed, the world grew restless. Governments held emergency meetings behind closed doors, while conspiracy theories spread online. Some people believed the objects were alien spacecraft. Others insisted they were secret military experiments gone wrong. In Pine Ridge, Daniel fielded calls from reporters eager to get a quote. He tried to remain calm and professional, but deep down he couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. Then, without warning, the aliens revealed themselves, not directly, not yet, but through their actions. Sleek, metallic drones descended into Earth's atmosphere, spreading out across continents and oceans. They hovered silently above cities, forests, deserts, and glaciers, scanning everything below with cold efficiency. Humanity watched in awe and fear as these machines mapped the planet with precision, unmatched by any human technology. For Daniel, watching the drones arrive confirmed everything he'd suspected. He spent hours tracking their movements, noting how they lingered over certain areas longer than others. The drones seemed particularly interested in natural phenomena, volcanoes spewing ash into the sky, hurricanes churning over open waters, and microscopic life thriving in extreme environments. It was as if they viewed Earth not as a home for humans, but as a laboratory teeming with resources. Emma noticed something similar during her underwater studies. The glowing organisms she'd discovered earlier began multiplying rapidly, clustering near the alien drones whenever they passed overhead. She recorded videos of the creatures pulsing in sync with each other, creating intricate patterns of light beneath the waves. It reminded her of communication, though she couldn't explain how or why such simple organisms would behave this way. Despite their differences, both Daniel and Emma sensed that Earth was being scrutinized, and not in a good way. The aliens' classification of the planet as low threat suddenly felt ominous. What did that mean? Were they planning to invade? Harvest resources? Or was there some other motive driving their actions? As the days turned into weeks, tensions escalated. Worldwide, people demanded answers from their leaders who offered little more than vague reassurances. Protests erupted in major cities, and social media buzzed with doomsday predictions. Yet amidst all the chaos, few realized that Earth itself might have plans of its own. One evening, as Daniel reviewed footage of the alien drones, he noticed something peculiar. Plants near crash sites where malfunctioning drones had fallen began growing abnormally fast, twisting toward the sky as if reaching for sunlight that wasn't there. Nearby animals acted strangely too, avoiding the affected areas entirely. Meanwhile, Emma observed similar changes in the ocean. Coral reefs expanded overnight and schools of fish swarmed around glowing patches of water with uncharacteristic aggression. It dawned on both of them simultaneously. Earth wasn't just being observed, it was responding. The alien drones continued their methodical exploration of Earth, moving silently through the skies and oceans. They were sleek and metallic, with smooth surfaces that reflected sunlight like mirrors. To the casual observer, they seemed harmless, just machines doing their job. But for Daniel Carter and Emma Lewis, the reality was far more unsettling. Each day brought new evidence that these probes weren't simply gathering data. They were testing Earth's limits, probing its systems in ways that felt invasive and deliberate. Daniel spent hours tracking the drones from his observatory. He noticed patterns in their movements, subtle but undeniable. They lingered over volcanic regions longer than anywhere else, hovering above molten lava flows as if studying them. In forests, they scanned towering trees and dense undergrowth, sometimes emitting faint pulses of light that made the leaves shimmer unnaturally. Even deserts weren't spared. Vast stretches of sand became temporary landing zones where the drones would pause before continuing their journey. Emma, meanwhile, focused on the ocean. Her research vessel had been rerouted to investigate strange occurrences reported by fishermen and sailors along the Pacific coast. Stories poured in about glowing waves and schools of fish behaving erratically. When Emma arrived at one such location, she saw it for herself. The water sparkled faintly, as though filled with tiny stars. Beneath the surface, the glowing organisms she'd discovered earlier now covered entire sections of the seabed. They pulsed rhythmically, almost like heartbeats, and seemed to react whenever a drone passed overhead. One night, while analyzing samples in her lab, Emma noticed something extraordinary. The organisms weren't just reacting, they were changing. Their bioluminescent glow grew brighter and more complex, forming intricate patterns that shifted in response to external stimuli. She recorded videos of the phenomenon, playing them back in slow motion to study the details. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen before, and it raised an unsettling question. Were these creatures communicating with the drones? Daniel reached a similar conclusion after observing plants near crash sites. A malfunctioning drone had fallen into Central Park weeks earlier, dissolving into a cloud of shimmering particles upon impact. Since then, the surrounding vegetation had undergone bizarre transformations. Trees sprouted leaves larger than usual, their bark developing strange crystalline formations. Flowers bloomed overnight, producing fruit-like structures that emitted faint hums when touched. Scientists who examined the area described the changes as accelerated evolution, but Daniel suspected there was more to it. The plants weren't evolving randomly. They were adapting in specific ways as if responding to some invisible signal. As the weeks passed, humanity's initial fascination with the alien presence gave way to fear. Governments around the world struggled to maintain order as panic spread. Conspiracy theories flourished online, fueled by grainy videos and unverified reports. Some claimed the aliens were preparing to invade, while others believed Earth was being terraformed for colonization. Neither scenario offered much hope, and people began stockpiling supplies or fleeing urban centers altogether. Amidst the chaos, Daniel and Emma found themselves drawn together by their shared discoveries. After exchanging emails and phone calls, they decided to meet in person to compare notes. They chose a neutral location, a university library in Chicago, where they could discuss their findings without attracting unwanted attention. When they finally met, the connection between them was immediate. Both were exhausted from weeks of relentless work, yet their eyes lit up as they talked. Daniel showed Emma footage of the glowing plants and explained how they seemed to answer the drone's signals. Emma shared her videos of the ocean organisms, pointing out similarities in their behavior. Together, they pieced together a theory. Earth wasn't passive. Its ecosystems were actively interacting with the alien technology, perhaps even trying to communicate. Their conversation was interrupted by breaking news on a nearby TV screen. A reporter stood outside Central Park, speaking urgently into a microphone. Behind her, crowds gathered around a section of the park, cordoned off by police tape. Scientists in hazmat suits moved carefully among the mutated plants, collecting samples and taking measurements. The reporter explained that the glowing fruit-like structures had begun releasing spores into the air, causing mild hallucinations in anyone who inhaled them. Daniel and Emma exchanged worried glances. If Earth's response to the alien presence was escalating this quickly, what would happen next? Would the planet's defenses grow stronger, or more dangerous? And what role did humanity play in all of this? Back in Pine Ridge, Daniel returned to his observatory with renewed determination. He pored over satellite images and drone trajectories, searching for clues about the aliens' intentions. One detail stood out. The drones always avoided areas with high human population density. Cities, towns, and even rural communities remained untouched, while remote wildernesses bore the brunt of their activity. It was as if the aliens viewed humans as irrelevant, or worse, insignificant. Emma returned to her research vessel with similar thoughts weighing on her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that Earth's biosphere was treating humanity the same way. The glowing organisms, the mutating plants, the shifting ocean currents, all of it pointed to a larger intelligence operating beneath the surface. An intelligence that didn't distinguish between aliens and humans. To Earth, both were outsiders. Days turned into weeks, and tensions reached a breaking point. Another drone malfunctioned, this time crashing into the Amazon rainforest. Within hours, the surrounding jungle transformed into something unrecognizable. Trees grew taller and wider, their branches intertwining to form impenetrable canopies. Streams overflowed, flooding large areas and creating swamps teeming with unfamiliar life forms. Local villagers reported hearing strange noises coming from the forest, low rumbles and high-pitched whistles that sent shivers down their spines. The incident sparked widespread debate. Some argued that Earth's reactions were purely defensive, triggered by the alien probes. Others believed the planet was retaliating, punishing the invaders for their interference. Either way, the implications were clear. Earth wasn't going to sit idly by while outsiders probed its depths. Desperate for answers, Daniel reached out to a retired astrophysicist named Dr. Alan Meyer, whose work on planetary ecosystems had once been groundbreaking. Though skeptical at first, Dr. Meyer agreed to review Daniel's data. What he found shocked him. According to his calculations, Earth's biosphere operated as a single self-regulating system, a concept known as the Gaia hypothesis. Under normal circumstances, this system maintained balance by adjusting climate, geology, and biology. But when threatened, it could activate dormant mechanisms designed to protect itself. Dr. Meyer warned Daniel that if the aliens misinterpreted Earth's responses, The consequences could be catastrophic. Instead of recognizing the planet's intelligence, they might see its actions as hostile. And if they decided to retaliate, humanity would bear the brunt of the fallout. Emma came to a similar realization during her underwater expeditions. The glowing organisms had spread beyond their original locations, appearing in deeper waters and even coastal regions. Fishermen reported catching fish with translucent scales and glowing eyes, while divers described eerie encounters with coral reefs that seemed alive in ways they couldn't explain. Whatever was happening, it was spreading, and fast. By the end of the month, Earth's awakening had become impossible to ignore. Natural disasters struck with alarming frequency, each one more severe than the last. Supervolcanoes erupted, sending ash clouds billowing into the atmosphere. Tsunamis wiped out entire coastlines, leaving behind barren wastelands. Magnetic storms disrupted communication networks and caused widespread blackouts. Humanity scrambled to survive, but no one knew how long they could endure. Through it all, Daniel and Emma worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. They realized that if they didn't find a way to communicate with the aliens, Earth's awakening would spell doom for both species. The world was changing faster than anyone could keep up. Earth's response to the alien presence had grown from subtle shifts to full-blown chaos. Forests expanded uncontrollably, swallowing roads, towns, and even entire cities. Rivers changed course overnight, carving new paths through landscapes that had stood unchanged for centuries. Weather patterns spiraled out of control, with hurricanes growing stronger, tornadoes appearing in places they'd never been seen before, and lightning storms illuminating the skies almost every night. Daniel Carter watched it all unfold from his observatory in Pine Ridge. The once familiar view of rolling hills and quiet streets now looked alien to him. Trees towered unnaturally high, their branches twisted and gnarled as if trying to reach something beyond the clouds. Flowers bloomed in colors he didn't recognize, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Even the air felt different, thicker, heavier, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. It was as though the planet itself was alive and angry. Emma Lewis faced a similar reality on her research vessel. The ocean around her team had transformed into a swirling mass of bioluminescence. Glowing organisms covered the surface, pulsing in rhythm with waves that seemed too perfect to be natural. Schools of fish darted erratically beneath the water, their movements synchronized like dancers performing a choreographed routine. Coral reefs expanded at an alarming rate, forming towering structures that blocked sunlight from reaching deeper waters. Emma knew these changes weren't random. They were part of a larger pattern, one that connected land, sea, and sky. Together, Daniel and Emma pieced together what was happening. They theorized that Earth operated as a single self-regulating organism, a concept known as the Gaia hypothesis. Normally, this system maintained balance by adjusting climate, geology, and biology. But when threatened, it activated dormant mechanisms designed to protect itself. In this case, the alien probes had triggered those defenses, causing Earth to respond in ways no one could have predicted. Their theory gained traction after a massive sinkhole opened up in the Sahara Desert. Scientists rushed to investigate only to discover crystalline formations buried deep within the Earth. These structures pulsed with light, emitting signals identical to the ones detected near the alien drones. It became clear that Earth wasn't just reacting, it was communicating. The planet was warning the invaders to leave, but the aliens misinterpreted these signs. Believing the changes were anomalies or side effects of their probe's activity, they doubled down on their efforts. More drones descended into Earth's atmosphere, scanning ecosystems with increasing intensity. This decision proved disastrous. Within days, Earth unleashed a series of catastrophic events that pushed humanity to the brink of collapse. Supervolcanoes erupted across the globe, spewing ash and molten rock into the air. Entire regions were buried under layers of debris, forcing millions to flee their homes. Tsunamis crashed against coastlines, wiping out cities and leaving behind barren wastelands. Magnetic storms disrupted power grids, plunging vast areas into darkness. Communication networks failed, isolating communities and making coordination nearly impossible. Humanity struggled to survive amidst the chaos, but no one knew how long they could endure. Desperate to prevent total annihilation, Daniel and Emma devised a risky plan. Using data collected from the alien probes and Earth's biosignals, they constructed a device capable of translating between the two languages. Their goal was simple: send a message explaining Earth's true nature, not as a passive resource, but as a living entity capable of defending itself. Building the device wasn't easy. They needed rare materials and advanced technology, much of which was inaccessible due to the ongoing disasters. With help from rogue scientists and sympathetic government agents, they scavenged what they could, working tirelessly in hidden labs and makeshift workshops. Along the way, they encountered survivors who either joined their cause or hindered their progress, depending on their beliefs about the aliens. One such survivor was a young engineer named Ryan Scott. He had lost his family in a tsunami caused by Earth's awakening and blamed the aliens for everything. At first, he refused to cooperate, insisting that humanity should fight back instead of negotiating. But after seeing the evidence Daniel and Emma presented, he reluctantly agreed to help. His expertise proved invaluable, allowing them to complete the device just in time. With the translation device ready, Daniel and Emma set out on a perilous journey to deliver it to the aliens. Natural disasters continued to ravage the planet, forcing them to navigate treacherous terrain and evade collapsing infrastructure. At one point, they crossed a flooded highway, clinging to pieces of debris as raging waters swept past. Another time, they took shelter in an abandoned building as a magnetic storm wreaked havoc outside, frying electronics and sending sparks flying through the air. When they finally reached the designated site, a remote canyon where an alien mothership was believed to be stationed, they found themselves standing face to face with the unknown. The ship hovered silently above the ground, its metallic surface reflecting the surrounding landscape. It was enormous, dwarfing everything around it, and radiated an aura of power that made their skin tingle. Taking a deep breath, Daniel activated the translation device. A beam of light shot upward, connecting with the ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air vibrated with a low hum, and a voice, not spoken aloud, but felt directly in their minds, responded. Through fragmented exchanges, they learned that the aliens had underestimated Earth because their understanding of life was based solely on technological advancement. They never considered the possibility of a planetary-scale intelligence operating independently of human civilization. Realizing their mistake, the aliens agreed to withdraw their forces, but only if humanity helped mediate the interaction. Relieved but wary, Daniel and Emma returned to share the news. The journey back was just as dangerous as the trip there, but they pressed on, driven by hope. When they finally emerged from the wilderness, they were greeted by a world forever changed. Cities lay in ruins, forests stretched endlessly, and oceans glowed faintly under the stars. Yet amidst the devastation, there was a sense of possibility, a chance to rebuild not just for humans, but for Earth itself. As negotiations began, Daniel and Emma became key figures in bridging the gap between two worlds. Acting as intermediaries, they worked tirelessly to ensure mutual understanding and cooperation. Their efforts led to groundbreaking insights into Earth's interconnected systems and the potential for symbiotic relationships with other intelligent species. But tensions lingered. Some factions within humanity distrusted the aliens, viewing their withdrawal as temporary and fearing another invasion. Others argued that Earth's awakening should serve as a wake-up call to prioritize environmental conservation and respect for the planet's delicate balance. Despite these challenges, a fragile peace took hold. And though survival remained uncertain, the bond forged between humans and aliens offered a glimmer of hope for the future. The journey back from the canyon was long and grueling. Daniel Carter and Emma Lewis moved through a world that felt both familiar and alien. The landscape had changed so much in such a short time that even places they once knew well now seemed unrecognizable. Forests stretched farther than they should, rivers twisted in impossible directions, and the air carried an electric charge that made their skin prickle. Every step forward felt like walking into the unknown. They traveled cautiously, avoiding areas where Earth's awakening had caused the most damage. Supervolcanoes still smoldered in the distance, their ash clouds painting the horizon gray. Magnetic storms continued to disrupt technology, forcing them to rely on old-fashioned maps and compasses. At one point, they crossed paths with a group of survivors huddled around a makeshift campfire. The people looked exhausted, their faces streaked with dirt and fear. When Daniel and Emma explained their mission, some offered cautious support, while others muttered darkly about betrayal and trusting outsiders, alien or otherwise. Despite the challenges, they pressed on. The translation device weighed heavily. In Daniel's pack, its presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. If their message failed, humanity might not get another chance. The thought kept them moving even when their bodies begged for rest. When they finally reached civilization, or what remained of it, they found chaos everywhere. Cities were crumbling under the weight of overgrown vegetation, and streets were clogged with abandoned cars and debris. Survivors roamed aimlessly, searching for food, shelter, or answers. Governments struggled to maintain order, but authority had broken down in many places. Rumors spread faster than facts, fueling paranoia and distrust. Daniel and Emma sought out leaders willing to listen. They presented their findings and explained the aliens' response to their message. It wasn't easy. Many officials dismissed them as delusional or accused them of collaborating with the invaders. But eventually, a few key figures agreed to help. Together, they organized efforts to communicate humanity's role as stewards of Earth, not conquerors, but caretakers who shared the planet with countless other forms of life. The aliens, for their part, began pulling back their probes. One by one, the drones ascended into the sky and disappeared beyond Earth's atmosphere. The change was gradual but noticeable. The glowing organisms in the oceans dimmed and the rapid growth of plants slowed. Rivers returned to their original courses, and weather patterns started stabilizing. It was as though Earth itself was calming down, reassured that the immediate threat had passed. But peace didn't come easily. Humanity remained divided over how to move forward. Some believed the aliens would return, stronger and more determined than ever. Others argued that Earth's awakening was a blessing in disguise, a wake-up call to treat the planet with the respect it deserved. Debates raged in makeshift town halls and online forums, with no clear resolution in sight. Daniel and Emma threw themselves into building bridges between humans and aliens. Their work took them across the globe, often placing them in dangerous situations. In one instance, they visited a region where glowing crystalline formations still pulsed faintly beneath the ground. Local villagers viewed the structures with suspicion, claiming they brought bad luck. When Daniel and Emma tried to explain their significance, tempers flared, and they narrowly escaped being attacked. In another incident, they boarded a research vessel tasked with studying the aftermath of Earth's awakening in the Pacific Ocean. The crew was tense, haunted by memories of ships lost to sudden storms and glowing waves that swallowed entire fleets. Emma worked tirelessly to calm their fears, sharing her knowledge and helping them understand the changes. Slowly, trust began to form, proving that cooperation was possible even in the face of uncertainty. As weeks turned into months, small victories emerged. Scientists collaborated with alien representatives to study Earth's ecosystems, learning how to coexist without triggering further defensive responses. Farmers adapted to new soil conditions, discovering ways to grow crops in areas transformed by the awakening. Engineers developed technologies inspired by Earth's natural processes, creating sustainable solutions for rebuilding shattered infrastructure. Through it all, Daniel and Emma became symbols of hope. Their dedication earned them allies among scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. People began referring to them as the mediators, recognizing their role in preventing disaster and fostering understanding. Yet despite their growing influence, they remained humble, aware that their work was far from over. One evening, as they stood on a hill overlooking a recovering forest, Emma turned to Daniel and asked, "Do you think we'll ever really understand what happened here?" He paused, gazing at the trees swaying gently in the breeze. Maybe not fully, he admitted, but I think we've learned something important. That Earth isn't just a place we live. It's alive, in ways we're only beginning to grasp. Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. And maybe that's enough for now. Below them, the forest hummed softly, as if agreeing. Months later, Earth settled into a fragile equilibrium. The scars of the awakening remained visible. In the towering trees, the glowing reefs, and the strange crystalline formations scattered across deserts and mountains. But life went on. Humanity rebuilt, this time with a deeper appreciation for the planet's complexity and resilience. The aliens maintained limited contact, sending occasional messages through the translation device. These exchanges focused on sharing knowledge and ensuring mutual respect. While some humans continued to harbor doubts about their intentions, others embraced the opportunity to learn from a species vastly different from their own. Daniel and Emma dedicated their lives to this cause, traveling between worlds, literal and metaphorical, to bridge gaps and foster understanding. Their efforts led to breakthroughs in science, philosophy, and culture, proving that cooperation could yield incredible results. Yet challenges persisted. Not everyone welcomed the changes brought by Earth's awakening. Some rebel groups refused to accept the new reality, launching attacks against alien outposts and sabotaging diplomatic efforts. Natural disasters, though less frequent, still struck without warning, reminding humanity of Earth's unpredictable power. Despite these obstacles, a sense of unity began to emerge. For the first time in history, people saw themselves not as rulers of the planet but as part of a larger whole. Conservation efforts gained momentum, driven by a renewed commitment to protecting Earth's delicate balance. Leaders from every corner of the globe came together to draft agreements aimed at preserving biodiversity and reducing environmental harm. As years passed, Earth took its place among the stars, not as a conquered world, but as a testament to the resilience of life in all its forms. And though peace remained fragile, the bond forged between humans and aliens served as a reminder that survival depended not on domination, but on coexistence. One day, standing on the deck of a research vessel in the middle of the ocean, Emma watched the sun dip below the horizon. The water shimmered faintly, a reminder of the glowing organisms that had once filled it. Beside her, Daniel adjusted the settings on a portable monitor, tracking signals from the alien mothership orbiting high above. "We've come a long way," Emma said quietly. Daniel smiled. "Yeah, and we've got a long way to go." They stood, there together, two small figures against the vastness of sea and sky, united by a shared purpose. Whatever the future held, they faced it with hope, and the knowledge that they weren't alone. Years had passed since the day Earth awakened and humanity first encountered the aliens. The world was still scarred, but it was healing. Forests stretched across landscapes where cities once stood, their towering canopies alive with birdsong and rustling leaves. Rivers flowed freely again, carving paths through valleys and nourishing ecosystems that thrived in ways no one could have predicted. Even the oceans shimmered faintly at night, a reminder of the glowing organisms that had once signaled Earth's defense. Daniel Carter and Emma Lewis were older now, their faces lined with the weight of years spent navigating chaos and change. Yet their eyes still burned with determination. They had become legends in their own time, symbols of resilience and hope for a fractured world. Their work bridging the gap between humans and aliens continued, though it had evolved over the years. What began as desperate attempts to prevent disaster had grown into something deeper, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared understanding. The aliens, too, had changed. Once distant and enigmatic, they now interacted more openly with humanity. Through the translation device Daniel and Emma had created, communication became easier, allowing both species to learn from each other. The aliens shared knowledge of advanced technologies and sustainable practices while humans offered insights into creativity, culture, and emotion, qualities the aliens found fascinating, yet difficult to comprehend. Despite these advances, challenges remained. Some factions within humanity refused to accept the new reality. Rebel groups operated in hidden corners of the world, sabotaging efforts to rebuild and attacking alien outposts whenever possible. These extremists viewed the aliens as invaders who would eventually betray humanity's trust. Their actions often sparked retaliation, threatening the fragile peace that had been established. One such incident occurred in what was once the Amazon rainforest. A rebel group detonated explosives near an alien research station, destroying equipment and injuring several members of the alien crew. The attack sent shockwaves through diplomatic channels, reigniting fears of conflict. Daniel and Emma rushed to the scene, determined to mediate before tensions escalated further. When they arrived, the air was thick with tension. Alien representatives stood silently beside the wreckage, their metallic forms gleaming under the sun. Nearby, human officials argued heatedly with rebel leaders, accusing them of endangering everyone. The rebels, defiant and unyielding, claimed they were protecting humanity from a threat no one else seemed willing to acknowledge. Emma stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't helping anyone," she said. "We've worked too hard to build trust. If we let fear drive us, we'll lose everything." Daniel nodded in agreement. "The aliens didn't come here to harm us. They made mistakes, yes, but so did we. Now we have a chance to move forward, together." The rebels hesitated, their anger wavering. One of them, a wiry man with sunburned skin and tired eyes, spoke up. "How do you know they won't turn on us? How do you know this isn't just a trick?" Emma met his gaze steadily. "Because we've seen what happens when fear takes over. Earth itself showed us what destruction looks like. Do you really want to go back to that?" Her words struck a nerve. Slowly, reluctantly, the rebels lowered their weapons. It wasn't a victory, not entirely, but it was a start. Over the following weeks, Daniel and Emma worked tirelessly to address the rebels' concerns, ensuring they felt heard and understood. They organized meetings between rebel leaders and alien representatives, fostering dialogue where none had existed before. Meanwhile, Earth continued to reveal its secrets. Scientists discovered that the glowing organisms in the oceans weren't just reacting to the aliens, they were adapting. New species emerged, thriving in environments altered by Earth's awakening. Coral reefs grew stronger and more resilient, capable of withstanding rising temperatures and acidification. Fish populations rebounded, their behaviors shifting in subtle but significant ways. On land, forests expanded into deserts, transforming barren wastelands into lush green havens. Plants mutated rapidly, developing traits that allowed them to survive extreme conditions. Farmers learned to cultivate these new crops, finding ways to feed growing populations without depleting resources. Humanity's relationship with nature shifted fundamentally, driven by necessity and respect. The aliens played a crucial role in this transformation. Using their technology, they helped repair damaged ecosystems and reverse some of the damage caused by centuries of exploitation. Together with human scientists, they developed methods to restore balance to Earth's delicate systems. These efforts weren't perfect, there were setbacks and failures, but they represented progress, however slow and uncertain. As the years went by, Earth took its place among the stars. News of its awakening spread throughout the galaxy, drawing attention from other intelligent species. Some came seeking knowledge, eager to learn how humanity had survived such upheaval. Others approached cautiously, wary of a planet capable of defending itself so fiercely. Through it all, Daniel and Emma acted as ambassadors, guiding humanity's interactions with these visitors. Their work wasn't easy. Each new encounter brought fresh challenges and questions. How much should humanity share about Earth's awakening? What responsibilities came with being recognized as stewards of a living planet? And how could they ensure that future generations inherited a world worth protecting? These questions weighed heavily on Daniel and Emma, but they faced them together. They traveled extensively, visiting communities around the globe to listen to people's stories and concerns. In remote villages, they met farmers struggling to adapt to changing climates. In bustling cities, they spoke with engineers designing eco-friendly infrastructure. Everywhere they went, They reminded people of the lessons learned during Earth's awakening, that survival depended not on domination, but on cooperation. One evening, as they sat on a hill overlooking a restored forest, Emma turned to Daniel. "Do you think we'll ever stop learning?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Probably not. But that's a good thing, isn't it? There's always more to discover." She nodded, gazing at the horizon where the sun dipped below the trees. The sky blazed with colors, reds, oranges, and purples blending seamlessly. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Below them, the forest hummed softly, its rhythm steady and reassuring. Birds called to each other in the distance, and the wind carried the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers. It was a reminder that life endured, even after the darkest storms. In the years that followed, Earth became a beacon of hope for the galaxy. Its story, a tale of awakening, adaptation, and unity, inspired countless others facing similar challenges. Humanity, once divided and destructive, found strength in its connection to the planet and to each other. The aliens, too, gained a newfound appreciation for the complexity and beauty of life in all its forms. Yet peace remained fragile. Rebels still plotted in shadows, distrust lingered in quiet corners, and natural disasters occasionally struck, without warning. But amidst the uncertainty there was resilience. People worked together to overcome obstacles, guided by the belief that coexistence was possible, not just between humans and aliens, but between all forms of life. Daniel and Emma watched it all unfold, two small figures standing side by side, against the vastness of the universe. They knew the journey was far from over, but they also knew they weren't alone. Together, humanity and Earth had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could endure, and that sometimes, the greatest strength lay in simply refusing to give up.